if you still remember. We talked about different aspects of composition and ways to use it. We talked about negative and positive spaces. We also talked about the sedate, alert, and dynamic orientations for the elements inside the frame. We said that sedate looks like this. We use sedate for calm and steady seams. And alert looks something like this. It's actually less calm. And it has more drama. And for the dynamic, doesn't have a specific orientation that we can follow. It's most of the time unpredictable. Something like this. So we can use it from its name for action. And dramatic scenes. And to show a sense of motion. We also talked about the rule of thirds, which is very important, especially for designers who design posters. It comes really handy. It has a grid like this. And it's called rule of thirds because it divides the frame of the picture into a few parts. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. We also talked about, other than the rule of thirds, we talked about the horizon. We talked about the high horizon. Which looks like something like this. We also talked about the horizon. Looks like something like this. We also call this, as you remember, bird eye. And we call this worm eye. We use this to make the characters of the elements in the scene look intimidating or powerful. Here We use it for sad scenes, usually. We can make the characters or the elements look tiny, helpless, or even weak. Depends on our characters and the orientation in the image. After that, we talked about the scale. And there is this. We talked about the scale. And how it can affect us. Which is if we have a fixed size of a number of elements and we change only one of them. We can also call it the contrast effect because there's a contrast. After that, we talked about the golden ratio. Yeah, but before that, we talked about the odd numbers. Or something like this. We talked about how odd numbers make the image more appealing rather than having a balance and a static look. Then we talked about the golden ratio known as Fibonacci. We said if you have a focal point here, let's say for example, we have a curve like this, we can put our elements on the curve so that the viewer looks here first, so that the viewer starts looking at this point, and he moves his eye like this. So after this quick recap, we'll dig into today's session. Today we're going to talk about two things. One is going to be perspective, and two is going to be about how to plan our designs. Well, we're going to learn about perspective so that we know how to apply the compositions we learned about, the high level, the high horizon, low horizon, the dynamic, the sedate. Once we learn perspective, we'll be able to apply them. This is especially useful for graphic designers and artists specifically. It can be used by anybody, but it's better for them to learn. Okay then, so let's start with the perspective first. Just a minute. Okay, can you see the PDF file? Can you see the slides? Hello, anybody?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. So, in perspective, we're going to talk about something called 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, and 3-point perspective. What do these mean? Well, let's start by 1-point perspective. So, let me analyze this first for you. So, this line is actually called horizon line. Or it can be called eye level, meaning that the camera is here. Our camera is in the middle of the frame. So our eyes are in the middle of the frame. In other words, if you have an object which is above this line, we look at it from the bottom. Let's say we have a box. This box is like this. If you look at it from here. But if the box was above the line, we're going to look at it like this. So we're going to look at the bottom of the box. If it was beneath the line, you're going to look at it like this. That's the idea. These things are above you, these things are below you. So if you move this line up, most of the things will be below you. So that's like a basic idea and a basic understanding of the horizon line. So let's move to the point. What do we mean by 1 point perspective? This point here is called vanishing point. Yeah, the point right here. It's called vanishing, meaning that everything vanishes here. Everything ends at that point. So we can create a sense of depth. I'll show you examples now so you can understand better. Look at this example. If we map this example, we'll find our horizon line here. This is our vanishing point. So from the vanishing point, as the previous example, we draw lines. They extend throughout the picture, throughout the frame, and they meet in 1 point. So if you draw lines from this point to everywhere else, but they should be straight. So if you have a ruler, it's better. You can use your hand, but it's not going to be accurate. So you can create depth. You can create the illusion of depth. So then, if you notice, the street here is actually following the line. Everything here is following the line. That's how 1 point perspective actually acts in nature. We can use the same principle to create our own photos and illustrations. Let's look at this. If you look at this, right now we don't know where the vanishing point is, right? But we can try and map out here. Here we get the vanishing point to be here. That's our vanishing point. Everything should follow the vanishing point, even the lines. Every line should follow it. You're not required to really understand perspective, but it's better if you got an idea of what it is and how to construct scenes, how to make use of the high level or high horizon and low horizon views. I'm not gonna go deep in this because it's not really important for you at this stage. So we move now to the 2 point perspective. So 1 point perspective is to create depth in the image. They both of them create depth, but this one is only where there's one vanishing point. So everything vanishes into 1 point at the image. But here we have 2 vanishing points. So we can see the buildings or the scene from 2 angles. As you can see here. So this is our line. Same thing, we draw number of lines extending from the vanishing point. Where those lines meet is where we can draw. So if I'm actually required to draw a street, for example, with this house, I'm going to do like this. It's going to be something like this. It's going to be like this. So there's an illusion of a 3-dimensional scene in here. Something like that. Let's look at the examples. Look at this. If you reconstruct the lines, you can see everything, every stroke, every line is following the vanishing point outlines. That's how you can construct something believable and solid. That's in short about the two-point perspective. Same thing here. If you look at it, we have 2 points here somehow. This is our line. Something like this. It's not really accurate, but you got the idea. Okay, now we move to the, it's actually 3-point perspective. This is actually still in 2 points, but we add another vanishing point. So this is actually very important if you want to manipulate the level of the camera, whether to make it a bird view or like bird eye or worm eye, a high horizon view or low horizon. So this scene is actually a high horizon. Why? Because the horizon level is high. So we look at things from up, we look down to things. The trick to make this happen is to have 2 vanishing points and one here, which is pulling up. So if I want to create a building, let's say for example, I'm having a street like this. You can actually create a building. Something like that. You can create a city. That's in short for the high horizon view. Same goes here, and the opposite is here. Here actually we're looking from below, so we're looking down to up. The eye level here, or the horizon level is here. These are the vanishing points, and these are the construction lines from up. You can see here. So let's try this. We're going to do some exercises or examples to look at the use of this. Just roughly. I'm not going to go deep in this. So let's say I have a frame. Okay, this is my frame. Let's say, for example, I want my horizon line. Or let's say I'm going for an alert scene. I want to use the alert composition. Okay, I'll decide first where to put my lines. So let's start with somewhat a worm eye. Not extreme, but a bit moderate. Okay, so let's decide where my vanishing point should be. I'm going to use 1-point perspective now. So let's put it here in the middle. Then from it, I should draw lines like this. My lines are supposed to be straight. But since I'm not using a ruler, trying to get the best outcome out here. So, okay, that's roughly a map the vanishing point. So actually, once you finish mapping the lines that are going out from the vanishing point, start mapping horizontally, like some horizontal line, like this. Okay, then let's say, for example, I want to create an alert scene. I might draw, for example, mountains going up like this. Could be a street. Trees, maybe. I mean, you get the idea. It means a lot of practice to master this. I mean, the perspective is itself. But what I want you now is to get just an idea. Do you have any questions until now about the perspective? Like the 1 point perspective, 2 point perspective? How to construct a bird view, how to construct a worm view? There are no questions. We can then have a break for 10 minutes, and then we can continue with the rest. In this break, just take some time and review what we talked, because we're gonna like compile everything we took before into a design. We're gonna construct a design after 10 minutes. Okay then, so let's delete all of this. We're gonna have some points to follow, create our design, but first, let me construct our frame that we're gonna experiment in and build it like a primer or a plan of design. Okay, it could be something like a poster like this. Okay. It's better to have your designs first and a thumbnail, like something like this small, so you can see the overall picture. If you have everything like this, zoomed in, you're gonna be lost in detail. But before you actually go to the details, you want to look at the full picture first, like this. We're gonna know what do I mean by that in these coming points. So first, before we even think about designing anything or starting any design, let me put a headline first of this, which is how to plan for your design. Okay, so the first point is going to be, well, before we talk about that, there's something very important you need to know. Before we talk about the points, look at this pyramid. I divide this pyramid into, this is our work actually, the importance. Here we're going to have research and basic, understanding
شوف هذه شوف محاضرة
of.
This is what? هذا ايش؟
Guys, can you please mute your mic?
يلا
بابا شوف اسمع شوف بفاز سكاي دايفنج شوف بالله شوف
So,
هو يخلي الشباب يفوزوا الالعاب
guys,
هذا
can you please mute your mic?
لا الالعاب متعة هي المتعة والله هذا نجرب
هذا
طيب عشان ما تزعلش تزعل بس
Here we're
خلاص
going to
خلي
have
مو يدخل يا
the creative part. So, usually this is going to take only 10 to 20% of your time. However, this aspect might take actually more than 80%. But when it comes to the importance, this is actually more important. It's the base of your pyramid. If the base is broken, nothing will stand. So you need to focus on this more, the beginning. Then you can move to the creative part, which is actually the details and the shapes and the ideas and stuff like that. But this part actually consists of shape language, color and contrast, composition, and perspective. Once you master these three, you'll be able to design whatever you want. So, that known, without any further ado, okay, we can put this in a different layer. Let's call this design planning. Okay, so first, before you start designing, or even getting your first stroke on the picture, you need first to know what you want to design. So the first thing to do is actually, which is obvious, know what you want. So are you like applied to design like a sale poster? You want to design something for cars? You want to design a website that sells, a website that promotes fashion, promotes soft drinks, whatever it is. You should know what you want at the beginning, right? It's obvious. After you know what you want, two, you should do a research, meaning look at others' work. What did they do? How did they approach this idea that you want to design something similar to? What color did they use? What are the shapes that they use? Once you did your research, probably I would suggest that you take up to 30 minutes in this process. Gather photos, pictures, designs, any ideas, anything that intrigues you. Not only what people did, also things that intrigues you, whatever they are. A color that intrigues you, a combination of shapes and colors, whatever you find and do it. But remember, don't copy whatever you find because you're going to be applied for copyright issues. So just take the creativity. Creativity means being good at stealing. So steal ideas. Don't steal the whole thing. Steal ideas and create your own with them. So once we do our research, we move to this part, which is actually closing our eyes. You might say, what? Seriously? Close your eyes? What do you mean by that? What's the point? Well, it's really important actually if you stop for a moment and close your eyes and imagine how your design would look like. And by the way, again, I mean by design, it could be an illustration, a poster, an image, whatever it is, something you can see. So stop for a moment, close your eyes, and just think of it, dream of it actually. Be in it. How would that look? What color should I use? What idea am I conveying? Try to construct the image first in your mind before actually constructing it on paper or the computer. So let's assume that I already have an idea. And actually I thought of something right now. I thought of why not, like something to design right now for you guys. So I thought of designing a circus poster that advertised clown, like a clown scene or a clown event for children, something like that. So I imagined it for a while, at this moment actually. So I'm gonna share what I came up with, but let's start like step by step. So the fourth step is actually to plan your composition. Remember about the composition? So first, we have this frame here. If I'm planning a composition for it, I'm gonna directly start with the most obvious one and most convenient one. Yes, you guessed it, rule of thirds. It's a bit lower. Okay, so we have this. Okay, once I have my rule of thirds, I'm gonna need to put my focal point. Where should my focal point be? Well, I'm thinking of this point here and this point. So these are gonna be the main areas where my focal point would be. Why did I choose this place? Because I want also to use a warm eye view. Okay, let me get it here. So here I'm gonna use a warm eye view and also rule of thirds. I mean, it's up to you. You can use whatever you want. It's a personal preference. And Fibonacci, why not? We can use Fibonacci as well. Okay, let's say I'm gonna put my focal point here. So it's gonna be curved like this, something like that. So we can place elements here, right? If the curve was flipped like this, you can also design elements as well. Let's put that on a different layer so we can play with it later. Okay, good. Okay then. Once I have my composition planned or my primer planning of composition, I would directly move. Remember, don't move to this stage, which is the composition, until you validate or have peace in check, which is knowing what you want. And you did your research for 30 minutes. You looked on the web. You found everything you want to construct your image with. And you imagined your scene. You lived it. You felt it. You already have like a primer or a rough picture in your mind of what you want to create. Then you can move to composition. So let's say I planned my composition. That's rough planning, but let's say we're done here with composition. Then we can move to the fifth part, or the fifth step, which is actually starting with shapes. So start with shapes. I'm not using any colors here. not any value as well. I'm just using shapes. So my idea was actually to design like a show for clowns that's in the circus that's directed to kids, right? Something like that. So my idea was to go for something like this, which is a box here. Oh, maybe I can tilt that a bit. Remember, I'm using a worm eye view, so I'm looking at everything below. That's why it looks like this. And maybe something comes out like this, which is big. So this could be my clown, for example, which is the main event I'm going for. These are up to you. You can design whatever you want. So these are my focal points. Here at the box, and also here. This area and this area. So if you notice, the box is actually small, and the clown face is big comparing to the box. I'm also using here the contrast effect, if you remember. So let's point that out as well. Also, contrast effect, which is scale. So it shows that the box is smaller than the face, which means, in other words, there's depth. So maybe the box is far away. We can imply that by using the colors and values. I'm going to show you how. Okay, I started with my focal point, which is the clown. That looks like a creepy clown. Okay, then, okay. We can also now follow the Fibonacci. Remember, we also have Fibonacci. Right now, I only depended on the rule of thirds. I didn't touch Fibonacci yet. And these are only shapes. I didn't put any colors. So I'm starting with shapes as well. These are shapes, like circles, squares. So let's say, for example, I'm putting my logo here. Maybe I'll put some curve like this. Maybe the logo of the event or the name of the event, something like that. Remember, this is the blue line. The blue line is Fibonacci. Don't miss that. See, this is Fibonacci. So following the Fibonacci, I'm going to put an item here. This item, I could write something important in it, like description of the event. What's going to be there? The price, for example. The price of the event, something like that. Something that it's actually important, because the viewer, remember, we said that the viewer will first look here. Your viewer will first look here, then will wander around like this. See? So first he will look here. Because of the rule of thirds, he first look here, then he jumps to here. Then he continues. He or she, I mean. Then he looks at this. So it's really important to make a good use of that. Are you following up until now? Until the fifth step? Is everything fine?
Yes.
Great. Okay then. So it's a circus, right? I would think of what to create next with shapes. Maybe I could put some curtains here. Just an idea. Like we're gonna have a stage. Something like this. But I don't want to cover my box. So maybe something like this. or that could be static. It's up to you. Okay. Now we move to the sixth part, which is colors. Colors and color schemes. So if I'm moving to colors, I want to make the background. I want to make this background here in low contrast. So let's do this. I'm just gonna do this roughly because there isn't enough time actually to design the whole thing perfectly. I mean. So it's just gonna be rough. Okay, I'm gonna go for this color. If you notice here, I'm using the wheel right now. So for the background, I'm gonna go for a color I'm gonna go for red because it's the curtain color for the circus. It's iconic. But I'm gonna use a desaturated and one that has low value. So it's gonna be somewhere in here. Oh, it's losing the color, so somewhat in here like this. Something like this for the background. It's dark. Not really dark and not too bright because I don't want to steal the attention from the character or from the face of the clown, which is my focal point, right? So then you create a new layer and now focus on your main character, which is the clown. It's gonna have a white face, obviously. Not too white, you don't want to glare the eyes of your viewers. So it's gonna be like this. Then you go for the red color, which is for the hair. Okay, now I'm gonna use something saturated because I want this to pop really well. So I'm gonna use it for the hair and the nose. Just like this. Notice I'm only using red until now. We cannot we cannot consider white as a color. Maybe a bit of black for the eyes. I look a bit rough, so maybe you can straighten this up. A bit of white for highlights. Yes, you got it. You got the idea. So once you look at this, of course you look at the clown first, right? So it's actually bright. Then I might go for the curtains. Okay, so the curtains are gonna be in red, but the red is actually gonna be dark. It's not gonna be saturated, and it's not gonna be desaturated. It's gonna be a bit dark, just in the middle. But remember, it has a low value, which means, in other words, it's dark. Because I don't want to steal attention from the clown, from my main element, which holds focal point. So let's quickly do this like this. Remember, until now I'm just using red. I'm not using any other color. Let's clean this out. Okay, I can actually play with the values. See, I'm playing with the values of the curtains. Look, if I made the curtains right, they start competing with my character here. And if I made the saturation high, they almost steal the attention. But when you desaturate the thing, and you make, if I put a little bit of saturation, made them dark, this would make my character pop more. Maybe I can increase the saturation a bit in my character brightness. Okay. Background seem a bit light, so maybe we can like lower value, something like this. Just in the middle, yeah. Oh, we forgot about the box, right? Now we have the box. We didn't color the box. Could be in gray, or could be in blue. If you want to go for the analogous scheme, we can go. Sorry, for the complementary scheme to create sharp contrast. We can do that. So we need to use a dark color for the box. Why? Not because I don't want it to pop out. Actually, yes, I don't want it to pop out that much, but because it's actually inside. Inside it's dark. So obviously and logically it should be dark as well, right? No, something like this. We go a little bit darker for the bottom. Since usually the light is from above, unless we have a different light source, which is up to us. Oh, it still look light, so we can manipulate it from here, make it a bit dark. Then we can play around with these. The sides we created. Since we're using a complementary scheme, we can use a dark color here. Could be rich. Remember, I'm having one element which has the most contrast. I'm just cleaning this out like this. You can play with the saturation of it. Can make it darker, a bit saturated, a bit darker. And then our second most important element, which is the information that the customer is gonna look at. Could be in white. You can use actually red as well for the price or for the, if you have a promotion, if you have something free, for example, like it's free, something like this. You can use, for example, free drinks. You know, this is marketing actually, it's not design, but you should know how to use it in design as well. Free drinks, for example. Make that in a very tiny type of coffee. So this actually looks very rough and very messy, but it's actually the building block, the solid building block for the design, which is the color, which are the colors and the shapes. So let's say we stopped like with the colors here. Where's our tick? Yeah, let's take them out. Okay. You might ask me now, what's the second step? How can I make this better? Because obviously it looks messy. It looks sloppy. Well, before actually we go, think of design and illustration in general. I mean design in general as a construction work. When people build like towers and beautiful buildings, the construction site actually before the building is finished looks messy and sloppy. It's not actually clean. It's not appealing. It looks, I mean, very, very untempting, right? That's the same idea here. Don't worry if your designs look like this, because who wants to look at this other design like this? It looks messy and sloppy. But it's just actually for showing you guys. I mean, if you're designing like this, you're supposed to have your lines or shapes in something more like in a way that is more refined than this. This is actually just for showing you guys. So let me show you, for example. You should have it like this, cleaned and sharp. You can use Illustrator or whatever you have to have some sharp lines. Anyway, you can also use shading if you have knowledge in that, but we're not gonna go deep to that. It's up to you if you wanna learn more about it. So after we go with the color, I mean, the color also includes like the things we didn't talk about, which is the shade and lights inside the character itself. For example, the nose is gonna create a form of shadow in here. It's gonna be some shadow here, for example, something to create depth. But we didn't talk about that. It's up to you to look for, because it actually would take a whole new course alone. Anyway, after we look onto the shapes and colors, we then move to letters, which is typography. This is especially for like poster designs. I didn't cover this in the course because actually not the interest of the course itself. We're talking about visual literacy in general. So the same process of this could be applied to illustrations, could be applied to movie scenes creation. Poster design. But after the 7th, we go to the 8th step, which is the last one. I call it splash. Some creativity. Okay, so this design, it looks a bit dull, right? How do you want to make this pop up? Maybe you can create something here. Maybe we could have something here, like some people moving around. We could have some fireworks going out like this. And remember, we can also create the shapes that also in a way to support the clown. So if someone's gonna jump from here, let's say we're gonna put someone jumping, a person, you can actually put him in this way. So he is actually pointing to the clown. So you're actually at the end supporting your main element. Remember, you should have one thing only to dominate. So let's say this guy is a gymnast. He's gonna jump. He's gonna do something fabulous. He's preparing to jump, so he's pointing to the clown. You're creating a form of triangle that's pointing. You can have some fireworks going out like this, or some crackers, or some whatever it is. You can use color, like green. That's why I said this process would take, I mean, the creative process, if you remember, would take 80% of your time. because actually the most tedious, it's the one that's actually consumed most of the time. Because you need to think about other stuff to add, where to add them, how to add them, how to be more creative. Anyway, what we got from this is actually the way we guide our viewer's eye. The viewer first will look here. So any viewer who stumbles into our design here will look first into the clown face and then move around. You should have the logo here and bright. He'll move around and he will stumble on this. He will stop. So it's like a map for a treasure. First we start here, then we go in our journey. Oh, we found the logo. You should have the logo bright so that it stands out. This is regarding Fibonacci. Then he stops here. He looks the price and everything. Then he goes. If you made this bright, you might look at after he's looking at this. You can also play with this with the curtains, make them bright. If you want to like add some contrast, it's up to you. You can add a stage here, like some dark stage. Anyway, that's in short, guys. How to plan. Do you have any questions? Any questions at all about this process? If not, then we would be able to stop here. Since you guys understand, if you don't, just tell me now, once you have time. Okay, before we stop, let me actually point things out. So sometimes you need to create things and you have ideas after you actually colored. So to be safe, take this step, go with this step like forth and back before you actually move to the colors. So insert the step here. So if you're satisfied here, just go directly to colors. If not, go to creative part, then come back, then color. And if you're not, you can also go back or continue. So guys, so that's all for today. Today was like a short
sorry,
session. Yeah, sure. Ask.
Could the sir repeat again the typographic post? Yeah.
The title.
The step number 7.
Okay. The typography.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Actually, I didn't cover typography in this course, but typography actually means the type of letters. I'll show you an example. Actually, it's a whole different. They have different value and like theory in it. So let's say, for example, clown. We can also write clown in a different font. Could be bigger, could be smaller. It's up to us. The bigger it is, the more attention it will get. See? I didn't cover this actually. Maybe this is suitable for kids. I didn't cover this in the course, but you can look into that. They have actually some psychological effects. The way you change the font. If the font is sharp, what the effect is. If it's smooth. That's actually the typography. It wasn't covered in this course. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else, guys? Feel free to ask. If not, then this is actually the process, which is basic and very straightforward to follow. We'll end our session here. Today was a bit short, but I hope you got the idea. I didn't want to make it a bit complicated for you guys. You can go wild in this part here. I mean, if you want to go wild in this part, which is the creative part, you're welcome to go actually. But first, understand your basics. Have a solid understanding before you go wild. So you can go wild and stand out. Otherwise, you're gonna be messy. And everything is gonna fight for attention in your scene or your image. You want only one thing to stand out. You want only to have one element shouting, and everybody's looking at that element. Every other element is actually supporting that one. That's the point you should aim for, and the mindset you should have when you design. And that's all. Thank you guys for coming and attending this course. If you have any designs in the future, just tag me on Instagram or send me. I would really love to see what you guys create or make out of this course. Take care, everyone.